Hello friends, welcome to C Sharp with Unity tutorial series. In the previous tutorial, we understood the difference between interface and abstract classes. Now we know abstract class is a partially abstract, whereas interfaces are pure abstract classes. Abstract class is considered as partially implemented class, whereas interfaces are unimplemented classes. We can declare an abstract class by using the abstract class keyword. We can declare an interface by using the interface keyword. While naming any class or an abstract class, we follow Pascal naming convention. Similarly, whenever we name an interface, we follow the Pascal naming convention, but every interface name is preceded by a capital letter I to indicate that it is an interface. Abstract class can have fields, constants, properties, methods, constructors, etc. Whereas interfaces cannot have fields, constants, constructors are not allowed. Whenever we create a member in an abstract class, we must specify the access modifier. Whenever we create a member in an interface, we need not to specify the access modifiers because all members in an interface are by default public. In the abstract class, we can have normal methods, virtual methods as well as abstract methods, whereas all members in an interface are unimplemented. So, you can consider interface members are abstract. Abstract class can be inherited. Similarly, interface also can be inherited. Whenever we inherit an abstract class, the child class or the derived class must implement all abstract methods which are available in the base abstract class. Whenever we inherit an interface, the child class or the derived class must implement all the members of an interface because all members in interface are unimplemented. Abstract class cannot be instantiated, interface cannot be instantiated, whereas we can create a reference of an interface. Similarly, we can create a reference of an abstract class. We create an abstract class, so I use the abstract keyword abstract class and the class name is abstract class. This is how we create an abstract class. And how do we create an interface? We use the keyword interface, then we write the name of the interface, interface. You can see that I am following the Pascal naming convention and I preceded the name by the capital letter I. Now we created the abstract class as well as an interface. As we know that we cannot instantiate an abstract class, we cannot instantiate an interface. That means I cannot create an instance of an abstract class. Abstract AC1 is equal to new abstract class bracket semicolon. This is not possible. If I save and go to Unity, we are going to get the error message. The error message is cannot create an instance of the abstract class. So it is not possible. Similarly, I cannot create an instance for an interface. So I interface I1 is equal to new I interface. If I save this and go to Unity, we are going to get the error message cannot create an instance of the interface I interface. Not possible. But we can create the reference of an abstract class AC1. We can create a reference of I interface I1. If I save this, we won't get any error message except the warnings. You can see that we don't have any error message except the warning. Warning is the variable AC1 is declared but never used. The variable I1 is declared but never used. Okay, that's okay, no problem. Now, let's proceed further. Now we understood points that we cannot instantiate the abstract class, but we can create a reference for an abstract class. We cannot instantiate an interface, but we can create a reference of an interface. We know that we can inherit an abstract class. Similarly, we can inherit an interface. Let's see that. I am going to create a class called as AB, I can say ACD. I inherit from abstract class, opening bracket, closing bracket. I can inherit an abstract class. If I save this, go to Unity, we should not get any error message. We don't have any error message. Let's go back. I can inherit an interface also. So I create a class called as INterface DC colon INterface, opening bracket, closing bracket. You can see that I have inherited the INterface. Save this, go to Unity. We should not get any error message. We don't have any error message. Let's go back. Now we know that I can create a member for an abstract class, and I must specify the access modifier when I am writing the members in the abstract class. That is what we have seen here. Access modifier must be provided. So let's go to the code. Public, I'm going to create an abstract member, abstract void display display3 bracket bracket semicolon. Now here I have created a abstract member. We know that the abstract members are not going to have the implementation. If I save this, go to Unity, we are going to get the error message because I must and should implement all the abstract members in the derived class ACDC. If I save, go to Unity, I am going to get the error message ACDC does not implement inherited abstract member display3. So what I need to do? I have to override public, override display3 method, and here I am going to say debug.log and I am going to write here ACDC. As I have overridden the abstract method in the derived class, if I save, go to Unity, we will not be getting any error message, but warnings will be there, no problem. Let's go. Similarly, I can create a member in an interface. So how do we create that? We know that we should not write public or private, we should not write any access modifier because all the members in the interface are by default public. That is what we have seen here. All members are by default public, so we need not to specify the access modifier. So let's go here, and also I need not write the abstract keyword because the members in the interface are unimplemented members. So I just write here void display3 bracket bracket semicolon. So here I created a display3 method which is unimplemented, there is no body. And if I save this and go to Unity, we are going to get the error message because I must and should implement this display3 in the derived class INterface DC. If I save, go to Unity, we are going to get the error message that INterface DC does not implement the interface member display3. So I must and should implement that. So how do we implement? All I need is I say public void display3 bracket bracket opening brace closing brace. Here I say debug.log and I am going to say here INterface DC semicolon. You can see that I have implemented, that means I have written a body for the display3 method here. If I save, go to Unity, we don't get the error message except the warnings. You can see that we have the warnings. That's okay, no problem. Now we got some information. Let's proceed further. Now if I want to execute this display3 method from the ACDC class, we know that we can create an instance of a concrete class and execute the member. Very simple. All I need is I can say here ACDC1 is equal to new ACDC bracket bracket semicolon ACDC1 dot display3 bracket bracket semicolon. Let me comment these two lines at present, and if I save, we know that we created the instance of the ACDC and we can execute this display3 method. If I save, go to Unity, we will not be having any error, no warnings, good. If I run the code, we are going to get the output on the screen ACDC. So what happened here? We call the ACDC1.display3. It has went to the ACDC class and executed the display3 method. We got the output ACDC. Good. Similarly, I can create an instance for this concrete class INterface DC. So how do I create that? I can say interface DC, I can say IDC1 is equal to new I interface DC. I can create that, and I can say IDC1 dot display3 bracket bracket semicolon. If I save, we know that we are going to get the output here I interface DC. Here we are going to get AC DC. Save, go to Unity, and if I run the code, we are going to get the output I interface DC. Here comes the next point. The next point is, as I told that we can create a reference for abstract class, we can create a reference for an interface when they are used. Let's see that. I am going to delete all this code from here. Here we are. I delete this also. Now, as we have an abstract class called as abstract class, and I have created a reference of the abstract class, we can put an address of newly created the derived class. So here you can see that ACDC is derived from the abstract class. So I can put the instance of the ACDC in the base class reference. Here AC1, a base class reference. So base class reference variable can point to the derived class instance. We know that. Now I can say here AC1 dot, you can see that I can call the display3 method. Now what happens here? We know that AC1 is pointing to ACDC, and we are calling the display3 method from the ACDC guide. If I save, go to Unity, we will not be having any error message. And if I run the code, we are going to get the output as ACDC. So we can create a reference of an abstract class to point to any of its children to execute their members. I hope you guys have understood. This is possible. Similarly, I can create a reference of an I interface IC1, and I can put the address of a new I interface DC bracket bracket semicolon. So here you can see that interface reference is pointing to its child class, that is I interface DC, and I can say here IC1 dot display3 bracket bracket semicolon. Now we are calling a child class method display3 by using the base class reference. So if I save, go to Unity, we will not be having any error message, and if I run the code, we are going to get the output as I interface DC. So you can see that we can create a reference of the interface to point to its children and execute their methods. Very useful information, guys. So here we have understood lot of things. An interface can be inherited, an abstract class can be inherited. We cannot create an instance of the abstract class, but we can create a reference of an abstract class. We cannot create an instance of an interface, but we can create a reference of an interface, point to its derived class, and execute the members of the derived class. Abstract class can inherit from other classes as well as interfaces, whereas interface can inherit only from other interfaces. Let's understand that. Please remember this point, because we are going to come back to this thing. I am going to delete this. I am going to delete all the points that we have. Let's create. I create a class A, opening bracket, closing bracket. I create a class B, opening bracket, closing bracket. Now we know that a class can inherit from another class. I save this and come back to Unity. We will not be having any error message. We don't have any errors. Now we have proved that a class can inherit from other class. Also, a class can inherit from interface. That means if I have this one as an interface, INER, interface. So here I have an interface A, I have a class B, and B is now inheriting from an interface A. This is possible. If I save, go to Unity, we will not be having any error message. That means A class can inherit from another class as well as another interface. Whereas an interface can inherit only from other interface. That means, let's see that. I create an interface A, opening bracket, closing bracket. I create an interface B, opening bracket, closing bracket. Here, I am going to extend the interface B from an interface A. As I told that, an interface can inherit from other interface. If I save, go to Unity, we will not be having any error message, no problem. Whereas, if I make this one as a class and try to inherit a class to an interface, this is not possible. An interface can inherit only from other interface, but here we have a class. If I save this, go to Unity, we are going to get the error message, type A in interface list is not an interface. So here we have a list of interfaces we should write here, but we don't have an interface. Here it is actually a class, so this is not possible, guys. So hope you guys have understood that interface can inherit only from other interfaces, whereas class can inherit from other class as well as interface. Let's proceed further. Let me go to this page. Do you remember we discussed types of inheritance? We understood single level inheritance, multi-level inheritance. We understood hierarchical inheritance. We know that single level inheritance is supported by C#, multi-level inheritance is supported by C#, hierarchical inheritance is supported by C#. We know that multiple inheritance is not possible through classes in C#. Also we know that hybrid inheritance is not possible in C# through classes. What is the meaning of that? Why it is not possible? What problems we get if we are creating a multiple inheritance or simulating a multiple inheritance? Let's see that. I am going to create a class A, opening bracket, closing bracket. I create a class B, opening bracket, closing bracket. I create another class called as C, opening bracket, closing bracket. Here we can inherit a class C from A. There will be no problem. We can inherit a class C from B. There will be no problem. But if I try to inherit more than one classes to a C class, then we are going to get the error message. If I save this, go to Unity, we are going to get the error message that classes cannot have multiple base classes. That is what we have here. For a C class, we have A as the base class. Here we have a B as the base class. Remember that in C#, a single class cannot have more than one base class. That means a class cannot have multiple base classes. Not allowed in C#. That is the reason we say that C# does not support multiple inheritance through classes. Now what problem occurs if I simulate this? Let's take an example. If I have a method public void display method, and I say here debug.log, I display A, semicolon. Similarly, I will be having a same signature method in the class B, only the output will be B here. Now we can see that I am inheriting class A to C. We know that this display method will get inherit to class C. That means I just copy this and paste it down. We can think that display method from the class A got inherited to the class C. Okay. Next, we know that we are also inheriting a B class. So this method should also get inherit to the derived class C. If I remove this and if I remove this, we know that in a single class we cannot have two methods with the same signature. We are going to get the error message. If I save this, go to Unity, we are going to get the error message that a member C.display is already defined. Rename this member or use the different parameter type. If I double click on that, it takes me to the second method. It is telling that there is already a method for display available in the C class. It has a signature and you have created a method with the same signature. It is not allowed. This is the problem that occurs when we inherit a single class from more than one class. That means, let me say Control Z. Here gets the problem. If I try to inherit a class from more than one classes which have the same members, then the compiler will get confused that which method it has to inherit. Whether it has to inherit this display method here or it has to inherit this display method here. So that is the problem with the multiple inheritance through classes. As well as if you see, hybrid inheritance is also not possible because hybrid inheritance involves a multiple inheritance. Can you see here? A single class has a multiple base class. So this is also not allowed in C#. So hope you guys have understood what problem occurs with respect to multiple inheritance through classes. Whereas we can simulate multiple inheritance through interfaces. That means multiple inheritance is possible through interfaces. And how that is? Let's see that. I am going to delete all these things and let's begin from scratch. I create an interface A, opening bracket, closing bracket. I create an interface B, opening bracket, closing bracket. And I create a class called as C and it is going to inherit from the interface A as well as the interface B. And I write opening bracket, closing bracket. If I save this, there will be no error because a class can inherit from more than one interfaces. Multiple inheritance through interface is possible. If I save and go to Unity, we are not going to get the error message. Can you see that? And I also told you that it is not possible if you have here class, here if you have a class, this is not possible. We are going to get the error message. Save and come to Unity. We are going to get the error message. Classes cannot have multiple base class, but a class can have multiple interface. A class can have multiple interface. Save this and go to Unity. We are not going to get any error message. Can you see that? We don't have any error message. A class can have multiple interface. Let's see how it works then. We know that in the interface, I can create a method with the name as display3, opening bracket, closing bracket, semicolon. I can create the same method in the interface B also, Control V. If I save this, now what happens? Whether this display3 method will get inherit here or this display3 method will get inherit. We know that the derived class must and should implement all the members of its base interface. So here I am going to implement public void display3 bracket bracket opening bracket closing bracket, and I say here debug.log and I just say here hi semicolon. Now what happens in this situation means the compiler will implicitly understand something like this. It understands that you have written an implementation for the interface A display3 method, as well as it understands that you have written an implementation for interface B display3 method. Let me explain that clearly here. Now we know that we can create C1 is equal to new C bracket bracket semicolon C1 dot display3 bracket bracket semicolon. We know that we can create an instance for a concrete class. If I save, go to Unity, we will not be having any error message, and if I run the code, we are going to get the output also on the screen that hi will get displayed. Good. Let's go here. We also know that we can create a reference of an interface and we can point that reference to its derived class. So let's create here derived class instance. So you can see that A1 equal to new C. That is possible. and I can say here a1 dot display 3, and we know that this time what happens here? Okay, the system will understand. I have to call a display 3 method that is available here, and if I save this and go to Unity, we will not be having any error message. If I run the code, you can see that I am getting the output high. Now what happens in this situation? When you say A1, for this display 3, whether there is an implementation in the derived class, it will check. Yes, there is an implementation. So system will execute that. Good. Now what I do? I create B1 is equal to new C bracket bracket semicolon B1 dot display 3 bracket bracket semicolon. If I save and run the code, let me comment this and save and run the code, we are going to get the output high on the screen. You can see that I am getting the output high. How it is possible? What happens here? When you say b1.display3, the b1 will check whether there is an implementation for this display3 in the derived class. Yes, there is an implementation, so it will execute this code. Save. That is how the code works, guys. Very simple. This happens implicitly. The compiler will do this for us. There is no problem in that. Now you can also explicitly implement both of these methods in the derived class. Now just think like this. You have inherited the C class from the interface A, and you have written the implementation for display 3 here, this display 3. Now you are also inheriting from the B, and you want to explicitly implement this display 3 method also. So I need to implement this display 3 method, right? So all I need to do is I need to write public void, I need to write here display 3 bracket bracket opening bracket closing bracket. I can say here debug.log, and I say here hello hello semicolon. Now if I save this and go to Unity, we know that we cannot have two methods with the same signature. That is an error. If I save and go to Unity, we are going to get the error message that a member C display 3 is already defined. Rename this. That is what the compiler is telling. So what you need to do to solve this problem, C# has another way. That is explicit implementation. So how do you explicitly implement the interfaces? Means before the method name, you need to write the interface name and put a dot. Now the system understands that this display 3 method you have implemented from the interface A. Similarly, for this display 3, I put B and put a dot. Now this display 3 method is an implementation of display 3 method which is available in the interface A. This display 3 method is an implementation of this display 3 method which is available in the interface B. This is known as explicit implementation. Now what happens? We should understand. When you say A1 equal to new C and A1 dot display 3, we know that what happens here means A1 will check whether you have an implementation for this display 3 in the C class. Yes, there is an explicit implementation A dot display 3. So it executes this. I am going to get here the output high. And here what happens? B1 dot display 3. Now B1 will check whether there is an implementation for this display 3 in the C class. Yes, there is an implementation. That is also explicitly you have told me that this display 3 method is for B interface. So it will execute this code. I am going to get here hello, hello, hello. I save this and go to Unity. We will be having an error. The error is the modifier public is not valid for this item. What is the meaning of that? Let me explain that. The error is we should not have the public for the explicit implementation. By default, they will be implicitly public for the interfaces. That means you can access like this. There is no problem in that. If I save, go to Unity, you will not be having those error messages. You can see that. And if I run the code, I will get the output hi and hello. So this point you need to remember that when you explicitly implement the methods, you should not write access modifiers. They should be by default publicly available to the interface reference variables. So this is how we can remove the conflict of multiple inheritance through interfaces. I hope you guys have understood. So for this tutorial, I think this much is enough, friends. In the next tutorial, we get more information. Thank you guys. Thank you very much. For more benefits, please subscribe, like, comment and share. Keep learning, keep coding, keep sharing.